बार फिर से इस चैनल पर लाइक बटन दबाइए। वीडियो को अगर अच्छा लगा तो प्लीज सब्सक्राइब एंड डू शेयर द वर्ड कि भाई एक बंदा है जो क्रिकेट को लेकर बहुत सारी बातें करता है। हम आज बात कर रहे हैं सेंचुरियन टेस्ट डे 2 की, अ डे दैट अनफॉर्चुनेटली despite a brilliant 100, some will say perhaps KL Rahul's best overseas test 100, it's a day which India will look back on with mixed emotions इसीलिए क्योंकि दोस्तों 47 runs were added. KL Rahul moved from 70 to his 100, his second consecutive 100 at Supersport Park in a test match in the presence of number 10 and 11. But unfortunately, जैसे कि मैंने कल के डे वन रिव्यू शो में कहा था, इंडिया को कम अज कम 300 बनाने पड़ेंगे। 250 275 से काम नहीं चलेगा, मिनिमम 300 तक पहुंचना पड़ेगा। एंड डिस्पाइट केएल राहुल्स ब्रिलियंस, India only got to 245, a first innings total which has been crossed for the loss of 5 wickets. South Africa lead by just 11 runs. It could turn out to be a match shifting day for South Africa because Dean Elgar, the man who we all know will retire at the end of this series, the former captain, he led for many matches. He is batting on 140. इफ यू नो डीन एल्गर, अगर आपने डीन एल्गर की इनिंग्स देखे हैं, वो एक ट्रेडिशनल डावर स्टबर्न टेस्ट मैच ओपनर है। वो बॉडी ब्लोज लेते हैं, वो बॉल की शाइन को खत्म करने की कोशिश में बहुत बहुत समय क्रीज पे बिताते हैं। उस लिहाज से देखिए, टू गेट टू 100 इन व्हाट, at a strike rate of about 170, about 72, 73, 140 balls. It's actually a pretty quick 100 by Dean Elgar standards, which just says how confident, how set he was. और जो समय डीन एल्गार ने दूसरे सेशन में बैटिंग किया, notice the track at Centurion actually eased out. It became much easier to bat than when Kagiso Rabada was hurling down thunderbolts at India's batsmen. Full credit, as I said, to Dean Elgar for putting South Africa in the lead. A marginal lead, a slim lead. Most likely, Temba Bavuma will not bat. He's got Marco Jansen. Elgar's got Marco Jansen. And then the tail to work with. But again, like I said yesterday, इंडिया अगर ये सीरीज जीतती है या हारती है, उस पे निर्भर है कि टीम कितने ज्यादा रन्स बना सकते हैं। और 245 रन दोस्तों साउथ अफ्रीका में टेस्ट मैच जीतने के लायक टोटल नहीं है। अगर हम पिछले 10 साल को देखें, यानी कि 2013 से लेकर 2023 तक, जो टूर्स, जो 3 टेस्ट मैच टूर्स हो चुके हैं इंडियन टीम का टू साउथ अफ्रीका इन 17 टेस्ट इनिंग्स, केवल 6 बार, 17 में से केवल 6 बार इंडियन टीम 250 पार कर चुकी है। एंड दैट जस्ट गोज टू से यस how tough it often is for Indian batsmen to cope in South Africa, how good South Africa's pace bowling has been over the last decade. But the सबसे बड़ी बात यह है कि टेस्ट मैच जीतने के लिए उन कंडीशंस में आपको 250 से ज्यादा रन बनाने पड़ेंगे। So as brilliant as KL Rahul was, unfortunately, if this match does not go India's way, they will look back at day one when the batsmen, barring KL Rahul, did not stand up. And then today, when despite Jasprit Bumrah's brilliance across 3-4 spells, the pace bowlers did not deliver the job. I thought कि ये टीम हो सके अगर पांचों के पांचों बॉलर्स अपनी पूरी मेहनत करके सही लाइंस पे डाले तो हो सके साउथ अफ्रीका 180 के आसपास ऑल आउट कर देंगे। नहीं हुआ। Prasidh Krishna on debut, yes, he's been around for a long time on the domestic circuit. It would be unfair to judge him on the basis of one innings. What, 15 overs bowled, but he was here, he was there, he was all over the place. Shardul Thakur, the man who 2 years ago took the best figures by an Indian bowler on South African soil, he was here, he was there. Siraj was good in spells, but I think he'll be the first to admit he did not bowl anywhere near the level that we know he can. It was mainly Jasprit Bumrah, and I go back to one spell, the first session आफ्टर द लंच ब्रेक। आप कोई भी टेस्ट मैच देखिए, हर सेशन की शुरुआत में जो पहला आधा घंटा 40 मिनट होता है, वो अक्सर डिक्टेट करता है कि एक टीम कैसे बॉलिंग करेगी, क्या प्लान्स लेके आती है। एंड टू सी रोहित शर्मा गो टू शार्दुल ठाकुर immediately after lunch on day two, it was a defensive move. Shardul Thakur was playing your holding role. I would have wanted to see Rohit Sharma say, Jasprit, आजा भाई कुछ कर दे. And I think that set in motion a rather flat day for India. Yes, they've taken 5 wickets, but of those 5, none of them is Dean Elgar. And that is perhaps potentially the innings of the match. Because Dean Elgar डटे हुए क्रीज पर झंडा गाड़ दिया है. This is a man who likes to bat deep. It's his home ground. He's become one of the first, in fact, the first South African to score hundreds at every test ground in South Africa. It's his farewell series. And looking at how India bowled, barring Bumrah, how averagely this team bowled, not enough chances created, and the fact that Dean Elgar is so set on 140, it could potentially be the innings that has shifted the match away from India. चलिए, लेट्स सी कि आप लोग को क्या लगता है. बहुत बहुत कमेंट्स आए हैं. मैं तो बोल चुका हूं इस सीरीज से पहले कि इंडिया ये सीरीज शायद नहीं जीत पाएगी, और 275 के आसपास 250 इन टोटल से आप सीरीज नहीं जीत पाएंगे. कमल सागर इज द फर्स्ट पर्सन हियर. ही सेइंग वेल प्लेड केएल राहुल, बट ऑर्डिनरी बॉलिंग परफॉर्मेंस बाय इंडियन बॉलर. शमी वाज मिस. बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हो आप. अक्षत सिंह, हेलो जेमी भाई, लव यू टू माय फ्रेंड. अमनदीप कह रहे हैं मैच हाथ से गया. लग रहा है मैच हाथ से जरूर गया. वो तो कल ही गया था वैसे. अमित गुरु सिंह, हेलो जेमी. Toto saying India's performance was mediocre, which is worse than a performance. Well, a lot of you in yesterday's live stream were very confident कि टीम 250 बनाएगी और टीम जीतेगी. I kept saying नहीं होगा. कितना बना लेगी टीम को? कम से कम 300 बनाना पड़ेगा. Despite KL Rahul's brilliance, you only got 245, and 245 is not going to be enough to win you a test match on South Africa. Call me cynical, call me negative, but I am realistic in my expectation of this Indian team in South Africa. I did not see them getting anywhere near 250 or wahi hua 245. And the bowling, that to me was more surprising than India's batting. Sports fan is saying Dean Elgar doing what our top order isn't able to do again and again. Bilkul sahi baat hai. You can criticize the lack of depth, but the point is when the top five batsmen are not giving you runs, it's unfair to go after Shardul and Ashwin. And then our bowling attack is left with the heavy work of taking 20 wickets cheaply. Like I said yesterday, in 31 years, in 8 previous tours, the reason India have not won a single test series is because the batsmen collectively across 8 series have not put up enough runs. Like I said, forget the 90s, forget the 2000s. आप 2013 से लेकर इस साल तक देखिए, 10 साल में 17 टेस्ट पारियां में केवल 6 बार इंडियन टीम साउथ अफ्रीका आकर 250 से पार बना चुके हैं, और उन उन 6 में से 3 came in the 2013 tour. So if you want the reason why India failed to win the series in 2018, why they failed to win 2 years ago, it's because collectively the batsmen did not put up good runs. Look at those totals. Between 195 and 250, you'll find about 8 or 9 innings. It's just not good enough. Blame the bowlers. You want to go after Prasid Krishna, you want to go after Shardul Thakur. By all means, आपका हक है. लेकिन मैं आपको बताऊंगा कि इंडिया इसलिए ये मैच नहीं जीत पाएगी और इस लिहाज से सीरीज नहीं जीत पाएगी क्योंकि बैट्समैन एक बार फिर से ढंग का टोटल खड़ा नहीं कर सकी. रोहित आप कह रहे हैं Indian bowling is not looking potent. 0-2 loading soon. Bilkul, like I said, before a ball was bowled in this test match, I do not think India have the skill to beat South Africa. I would love to be proven wrong, but 2 दिन की परफॉर्मेंस देखकर, एक दिन खराब बैटिंग केएल राहुल को छोड़ के और एक दिन खराब बॉलिंग बुमराह को छोड़ के, I think yes, the lead is only 11. It's test cricket. 5 wickets could come in the first half an hour. We don't know. That's why test cricket is the most amazing sport that I've ever seen. और इसलिए मैं क्रिकेट का इतना बड़ा फैन हूं, इतना बड़ा मरीज हूं. But practically अगर आप सोचेंगे 245 was not going to be enough. Yes, Anand Markram. What about Krishna and Thakur? I've already addressed the issue. I think I don't need to go back there again. Ravi Shankar is saying this test match reminds me of Durban Test 2013, where Jacques Kallis changed the match single-handedly against India. Correct, but at least you had centuries from Pujara and Virat Kohli, if I'm not mistaken. They did score hundreds in that Test series. Look at this series, also a 2 Test match series like 2013. Only one batsman was able to get 100 on the board, and his name is KL Rahul. Collectively, you need at least 2 guys scoring hundreds and at least 2 more getting 50s, ताकि टीम का टोटल 350 तक पहुंचे, which is the kind of totals India were getting in that 2013 series which you're talking about. There was a total of 330, if I'm not mistaken, and another 300 odd. But since then, in 10 years, a decade since then, only 6 times has 250 been crossed. So by all means, go after Shardul, go after Prasid Krishna, go after Rohit Sharma's captaincy. But the point is, batsman ने इंडिया को सबसे ज्यादा let down किया है इस series में. Amit Singh was watching the Super Sport telecast, and Ravi, Pollock, Philander were quite perplexed to see Shardul and Prasid bowl of lunch. Exactly what I said. Akshat saying, so Indian prime team batting bowling may seem weak, fragile versus the experimental young ODI or test setup. Siraj versus any choice? Again, can you name me first class bowlers coming through the ranks? I cannot. So I think there's very, very few options to choose from. Introspective saying, need to question Rohit's captaincy. He has taken some cruise decisions. There was enough on this pitch to bowl SA under 200. Initially, yes, but Mohammad Siraj, barring I think three spells, didn't create enough chances. Shardul and Prasad were very flat. Ashwin, I mean, fantastic bowler, but on these tracks, very, very tough for him to do something. There's a reason his stats are so poor, but I'm not going to go after Ashwin. I mean, the guy's got 489 test wickets. But Rohit Sharma, like I said, starting the lunch session, the first over from Shardul, very, very flat for me. Rohit, I was saying why Shardul is in the team. Well, I'll tell you, this is only his 11th test match. And if I'm not mistaken, of those 11, 10 have come overseas. And his bowling figures overseas are actually very, very good. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Rohita, he came into this test match with an overseas bowling average of around 25 or 26, which is very, very good. And it was just 2 years ago that Shardul was India's best bowler. He took 7 wickets in an inning. So this is why he's playing. But unfortunately, he had a very, very bad day. But I'm going to give him some room because if it, if Test cricket was so simple, then Sachin Tendulkar would have scored 100 in every innings, and Kumble would have taken 5 wickets in every inning. So yes, today Shardul was the weak link along with Prasidh Krishna. But to be fair to him, Shardul Thakur, the Test bowler in overseas conditions, had a very good record coming into this match. So that's why, personally, since you asked the question, that's why he's there. Why we can't find anyone to replace him if Pandya is going to be injured. Look, I don't think we need to discuss Hardik Pandya, the test player. It's been 6 years since he's played a first class match. So clearly, Hardik Pandya himself has turned his back on test cricket. So no point comparing in the test arena, comparing Hardik Pandya. His last test match was 6 years ago, as was his his last first class match. So he's not playing Test cricket ever again. He's not been playing for Baroda. He's not played a red ball match for 6 years. So no point bringing him into discussions around Shardul in the Test team. Ame is saying, I think we're gathering enough sample size by now to say our bowling plans in Test look clueless when things don't go our way since Bharat Arun retired. बिल्कुल सही बात कहा आपने. I think Bharat Arun को बहुत ज़्यादा श्रेय मिलना चाहिए for the way that India is, like I said earlier on one of the shows this week, India went through a phase where in their history, in 6 decades or whatever it is, 7 decades of playing Test cricket, jo bhi ho, the last 7 to 8 years were the golden era of Indian fast bowling. But now, with Ishant Sharma retired, with Bhuvaneshwar Kumar, also like Hardik Pandya, not playing red ball cricket for 6 years, 5.5, 6 years. Mohammad Shami injured is a big loss. So unfortunately, we all of us, you, me, jo bhi log mere sath yahan jude hain, we were fortunate and privileged to watch this collective assembly line of some very, very good fast bowlers. But now that assembly line is somewhat shortened because we don't see quality red ball bowlers coming through. So unfortunate, but that's the reality of where we are. Why can't we pick a relatively young team to play overseas test cricket like how we got the GABA? Exactly my point. The GABA happened because Rohit Sharma was injured for 2 test matches. Ishant Sharma was injured, and then Virat Kohli chose to leave to go home. It took young players, players perhaps who many did not see playing that series to win that test series. But unfortunately, India collectively cannot let go of big names. Very convenient to get rid of Pujara and Rahane, but why is the same approach not being given to other players? I know Rohit Sharma's got some brilliant numbers in Test cricket across the last few years. KL Rahul has redeemed himself with a fantastic 100, but before this, KL Rahul was averaging 33 from 47 Test matches. To my mind, not enough to get justified for longer selection. Virat Kohli is the greatest all-format player of this era, but personally, I think he's heading down a 2 year stretch where he's going to find Test cricket the hardest he's ever found it because he's had a slip disc, he wears contact lenses, his hand-eye coordination is failing him. So you need seniority, you need experienced players, but like Akshat said, I would also like to see more Jaiswals, more Gaikwads, more Gills, more. I don't know. I mean, if you think Sarfaraz Khan deserves to play Test cricket, throw him in there. Let these youngsters fail. Let them learn. Taki we can see them become something big. But anyways, That's a different topic for a different day. Right now, the point is an experienced team has let themselves down. Ravi Shankar is saying, where is Hardik Pandya? Ravi Shankar, I don't want to single you out, but I don't think you watch enough cricket. Like I just said 5 minutes ago, Hardik Pandya has not played a red ball match in about 5.5 years. Ravi Shankar, आप red ball cricket समझते हो ना? Red ball cricket is the domestic cricket, the pathway to test cricket. Hardik Pandya's last test match was in June of 2018. That is 5.5 years ago. That same season, he stopped playing red ball cricket. So the basic criteria for being selected, just like Bhuvneshwar Kumar has not played a test match in 6 years, is because 6 years ago he stopped playing red ball cricket. To be selected, Ravi Shankar, for the test team, you need to be playing one format, and that is first class cricket. It's been 5.5 years since Hardik Pandya played a red ball game. That means Hardik Pandya himself gave two middle fingers to test cricket. So why are you asking me where is Hardik Pandya? If you watch cricket, you would know that it's been 5.5 years, my friend, since he played test cricket. So I'm not quite sure why you're asking me where Hardik Pandya is. Hardik Pandya himself said, I don't want to play test cricket. He literally gave two invisible middle fingers to test cricket. Ask him this question. Tag him instead of tagging me with these banal questions. Tag Hardik Pandya, my friend, and ask him. Ame saying Gabba result was a one off. It was a one off, but it was once in a lifetime one off because Australia had their top team. And sooner we realize it, the better. We're not going to win just like youngsters or backup players in Test cricket. Again, I get your point, but are the experienced players winning anything? Or the Rohit Sharmas, KL Rahul, Virat Kohli, Jasprit Bumrahs, Shreyas Ayers, are these guys, are they winning you titles and overseas series? नहीं ना. So at some point you need to say, boss, हो गया बहुत, चलो थोड़ा youngsters में invest करें. I'm not saying you pick 1 to 11 or 20-year-olds, but mix it up, get a good experience. That's why I agree with Akshat when he says to pick a quote unquote relatively young team. Reasons behind Gill failure. Technique. Shubman Gill does very well on bouncier tracks, which is why I said, yes, his numbers have been dipping since that GABA 91 3 odd years ago, but I'm still not going to be too harsh on Gill because this was his first innings in South Africa in a test match. लेकिन अगर शुभमन गिल इस मैच में दोबारा फेल होते हैं और दूसरे टेस्ट मैच में फेल होते हैं तब मैं कहूंगा शुभमन गिल should be dropped for the 5 test matches against England. You are very, very, very talented. You've had an excellent year in white ball cricket. But if you keep playing loose shots, look at his technique. Ollie Stone came to India immediately after the GABA टेस्ट मैच इंग्लैंड आया था. ऑली स्टोन नाम के बॉलर ने चेन्नई में और शायद मोहाली में उनको अंदर आती हुई गेंद से एलबीडब्ल्यू किया, बोल्ड किया. ही इज गॉट अ प्रॉब्लम, बट हिज शुभमन गिल dismissal in the first innings yesterday was not about any ball coming in. He just a ball on his pads he happened to glove. Yes, he's struggling. Yes, he should be dropped if you ask me for the 5 tests against England if he fails in this series. But again, I'm going to give him a bit more room. I'm not going to judge him based on one cheap dismissal in his first innings in South Africa. Memes World is saying, Sir, I feel we don't have any plans in big partnership like World Cup final, India versus England 5 test, India versus SC in 2021, World Cup final. We're unable to break big partnership at crunch moments. बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हो आप, बिल्कुल सही. Akshat saying, I'd rather pick reliable Pujara over Iyer Gill for number 2, 3 in test, to be honest. Fair enough, because the batting in one innings has made you miss those guys, but Pujara and Rahane were also extremely inconsistent. So again, it just depends. I'm a big fan of Pujara, but sometimes you can tell when the inconsistency is blocking another younger player's path. I frankly am okay with that, but you and I are here to disagree as well. Tarun saying, hi Jamie, why are they not selecting our fast Umran Malik? Tarun, I don't think Umran Malik has played more than I think he's played less than 10 first class matches. So when you get bracketed as being a white ball player, sometimes you just tend to go with the flow. Again, off the top of my head, I don't know Umran Malik's first class stats, but I think, in fact, hang on, let me just check once while you're here. I'm willing to wager without seeing anything that Umran Malik has played less than 10 first class matches. Am I correct? Give me 5 seconds to bring it up. Yes, I'm right. Umran Malik, Tarun, has only played seven first class matches. Seven. That means you're not going to play Test cricket when you've only played seven first class matches. He's taken just 12 wickets at an average of 46.6 and a terrible strike rate of 62.6. That, my friend Tarun, is why Umran Malik is not playing Test cricket. Castle is saying, I think Gill is talented, but he might take time to fill the gap of Pujara. Seems huge difference. Again, he's not a Pujara. It's an unfair comparison. The fact that he's been moved from opener down to number three is a lot of expectations from him. I still think Shubman Gill has the talent to play Test cricket for 10 years. He might be better off at number four. He might even lead India, 5 years down the line. But right now, Shubman Gill needs to realize that Test cricket में रन बनाना छोड़ो. टेस्ट क्रिकेट पे क्रीज पे खड़े रहने के लिए, टेस्ट क्रिकेट में सर्वाइव करने के लिए आपको क्या मेंटल और टेक्निकल स्किल्स चाहिए. फिलहाल उनके गेम में जहां पिच थोड़ी ऊपर नीचे रहती है, जहां पे पिच थोड़ी धीमी होती है, टू पेस्ड, he really struggled. That's why he had a horrible tour of the West Indies. I personally think, just like he did so well in Australia, I think he should do better in these next three innings of his. That's why I'm saying I'll give him some, I'll cut him some slack. But overall, he has a lot of work to do to be considered a test player. Ravi Shankar saying, I think India can still win this match. Great. I'm glad you have such positivity. Akhil is saying, Prasidh wasn't hitting the deck hard. He's either bowling too full or too short in first and out of the spell. It costed us many runs. Bilkul sahi keh rahe ho aap. And he was the poorest bowler on view. But again, it's his first innings and he's coming off a lot of white ball cricket. I believe Prasidh Krishna is better than 15 overs of very poor bowling that we've seen. I will reserve my judgment on Prasidh Krishna after he's played one whole test match. So, but yes, Akhil, I understand where you're coming from. Nimesh Pandey saying, I think providing slow track in India for tests damaging our batsmen and their records. Ah, निमेश एक हद तक आपकी बात सही है क्योंकि ओवरसीज कंडीशंस में अक्सर टीम स्ट्रगल करती है लेकिन यही फ्लैट कंडीशंस आप या स्लो ट्रैक्स आप काफी साल से देख रहे हैं और इसी के बीच टीम ने दो सीरीज ऑस्ट्रेलिया जाकर जीती. आई थिंक टीम इंडिया का सबसे ज्यादा प्रॉब्लम आता है साउथ अफ्रीका में जहां पे एक आध टेस्ट मैच जीत चुकी है पिछले 10-11 साल में. बट जहां पे बाउंस है, जहां पे थोड़ा बैट्समैन के मन में डर का उपयोग नहीं करूंगा लेकिन कहीं ना कहीं डाउट्स आते हैं. अब श्रेयस अय्यर की डिसमिसल देखिए कल जब टीम की हालत खराब थी, 3 विकेट डाउन थे कुछ 24 रन के लिए, तो उन्होंने काउंटर अटैकिंग पारी खेली, कम रन बनाए 30-31 के आसपास. लेकिन लंच ब्रेक के सीधे बाद रबाड़ा की गेंद अच्छी थी लेकिन क्या वो गेंद के लिए उनको पीछे जाना चाहिए था? बिल्कुल नहीं. ही वॉज, to use a cliche, Shreyas Iyer was a sitting duck, a dead duck yesterday. He should have come forward. लेकिन उनके मन में डाउट्स थे कि भैया लंच के बाद रबाड़ा या जो भी तेज गेंदबाज मुझे बॉलिंग करेगा वो पटकेगा बॉल को. So he was waiting for the short ball and Rabada bowled a nice good length ball which trapped him plumb LBW. So can you say that playing on raging turners or slow tracks in India is the reason why India's batting overseas has dipped? एक हद तक हाँ, but it was during that same time of slow tracks, the raging turners, that India also won a few test matches in England, won 2 test matches in South Africa without ever winning the series. But सबसे बड़ी बात, they went to Australia and in those bouncy conditions, they won 2 tests. So I get निमेश कि आप कहां से आ रहे हो लेकिन थोड़ा मैं डिसएग्री करूंगा आपके पूरे स्टेटमेंट से. अब दोस्तों मैं आपसे सवाल पूछता हूं. रविशंकर ने बोल दिया कि he thinks India can still win this match. How many of you think that Dean Elgar batting the entire day or as long as South Africa's innings has lasted, getting 140 has taken the match away from India? I think Dean Elgar has done that job. लेकिन मैं आपसे जानना चाहूंगा कि आपको क्या लगता है डीन एल्गर की पारी को लेकर. 256 रन, 5 विकेट गवा चुकी है ये टीम, अभी भी 5 विकेट चाहिए, 4, because I don't think Babuma will bat. Just a lead of 11 runs, महज 11 रन का लीड है साउथ अफ्रीका के पास. What kind of target do you think, what kind of lead you think will be enough for South Africa? I think अगर यहां से वो 80 रन भी जोड़ लें, 100 रन की लीड ले लें, तो मैच हाथ में जाएगा क्योंकि conditions will become tougher. I think Elgar in the second session got some much easier batting conditions than when he first came to bat at the start of South Africa's innings. I think yesterday, day one, at Super Sport Park was a tougher time to bat. But again, day three, it's going to be tough. And then day four, कहीं ना कहीं कल day three पे इंडिया जरूर बैटिंग करेगी क्योंकि I think this team will take 5 wickets. It just depends. पहले 2 घंटे में या लंच के 1 घंटे बाद. But what kind of total do you think will put the match out of India's reach? I'm saying अगर यहाँ से 5 विकेट जो बचे हैं, चार अगर बबूमा बैटिंग नहीं करते हैं और एल्गर अगर सेट है 140 पे, तो मैं मानता हूं यहां से 100 रन का लीड काम हो गया इंडिया का. Which is what I'm saying. A lead of 100 will be match winning in my opinion. बिल्कुल सही बात है. Only Sri Lanka is an Asian team to win a test series. Yes, we discussed this yesterday as well. Anyways, my lovely friends, thank you for joining. Thank you for questioning. Thank you for debating. Thank you for arguing. Thank you for liking. Thank you for sharing. I will come back and see you tomorrow when we recap day three of the Centurion test. Love you all. Take care. Jai Hind.